Okay, good evening. How's everybody doing?
Great, thank you.
I'm going to start with Orphan Train. Um, Someone in the in-person class liked Orphan Girl quite a lot. In fact, they wanted to sing it at the end of class. And she said, if you have any more songs about orphans, I'd like to hear them. So I thought of Orphan Train by Utah Phillips. Are you all familiar with Utah Phillips, Bruce Phillips? He was a um, performer. Utah Phillips was kind of a character that Bruce Phillips created. It's pretty seamless, but he was a folk singer slash labor organizer advocate. He was connected with the Wobbly movement, the industrial workers of the world, kind of an older vein of leftist politics. And It goes back to the 20s and 30s, and a lot of Phillips' identity professionally was with trains and hobos and kind of the culture, especially on the West Coast, of working people who had to struggle to survive. And so his act, if you ever see him, um, well, I will try to add a couple of videos of Utah Phillips just doing his songs. I neglected to do that, which is a shame because he's really an interesting character in himself, or was. He died recently. But Anyways, he was playing somewhere, and there was a gathering of people who had been children on the orphan train, and I think he hadn't heard about it before, and so he wrote this song about their experience. It's quite a sad story. I mean, I had heard the song before and I kind of knew what it was about, but I found some videos about it that I put links to, and uh, it's very touching, and it touches on the whole issue of foster care for children, and how it was an early attempt to create a kind of a foster care for kids in New York City who were on the street, and a well-meaning Methodist minister organized this thing to send them out west to get housed with farm families. Upright farm families was the concept, and as you can imagine, the actual distribution of kids was kind of random and got handled by a number of organizations. And at its worst, it was kind of an enslavement of children to work for free by people who would house them. It, Pretty awful in its details. And as I got more and more into it, I thought this is a terribly sad story to bring to a class. But it's along the lines of say Woody Guthrie songs, who Trainwreck at Los Gatos, or Plane Crash at Los Gatos, um, uh, where he's talking about farm workers being flown back to Mexico, and the plane crashed in Los Gatos Canyon. Things that were topical stories that became folk songs that people would sing and keep the stories alive. Enough that just recently, speaking of the Woody Guthrie song, they the names of the people who died in that crash were finally published. One of the things in the chorus of that song is, "You won't have a name when you ride the big airplane. All they will call you will be deportee." And it's the kind of the tragedy of these nameless people. We use them to pick our crops and then send them away. Anyways, the topical songs are an important part of country and folk music. Um, I'm less drawn to them as rhetorical art. I've kind of made up my mind about most of these topics before I hear the songs, and they don't tend to sway me. But some of them are moving pieces of art. Um, and so Orphan Train is one of those. It's a song that I liked very much when I first heard it. The version that I would refer you to really get a sense of the song is by Jody Stecker and Kate Brislin. They're a duet act that I would refer you to in any case. Anything of theirs is worth listening to. And you can order their music through their website, I believe, still. But it's a lot of it's on YouTube.
Richard, just a couple things on that. So a few years ago, do you know Bill Wagman in Davis? He's got a radio program that's alternate Saturday mornings called the Saturday Morning Folk Show.
No.
He does house concerts and stuff in Davis. Anyway, one morning he did a whole series of different versions of Plane Crash at Las Gatas, including one in Spanish. It was really interesting. I think it was associated with that memorial thing where they found all the names of people.
Yeah.
So that was really interesting. But I couldn't believe how many different versions there were of that song. It was really interesting. And the other thing I want to say is that I live part-time up in Grass Valley, and Utah Phillips, among other things, he started a homeless shelter up there. Which is still very much, a community. He's very much a part of that community, because I guess he was really influential in the whole music scene up there. Seems like every.
Yeah, he lived up near there, and he was an activist artist, and lent his voice to a lot of causes. Interestingly, one of the Dry Branch Fire Squad version of the song, I think the one that I put in was a live. No, I'm not sure. Well, anyways, this is a diversion. Live Branch Fire Squad is a. I'm going to cut to the song because I'm going to talk too much otherwise. But this idea of topical songs is something that not many of these songs that we'll be doing are so topical. And this one happens to be one that once I got into it, it really was distressing and really depressing to hear about, especially considering that foster care is still a really serious issue, and it's better, I suppose, but hard to think of these kids going through this. One of the links that I realized in this was the Jimmy Brown, the Newsboy is a country song that was very popular a number of years ago. Newsboys were the kind of character that would be on the street and not have much to do. They were often really poor, and selling newspapers was a way to get by, selling matches, things like that. These are the kids that would get scooped up by the agencies and sent out to different areas, and the trains were one way that they went. So I think I'll do this in the key of A. I'm going to capo on 2 and play it out of G. But all that to say, the Kate and Jody version is beautiful, and they really do it beautifully. Once I had a darling mother, though I can't recall her name. Had a baby brother who I'll never see again. Oh, the children's home is sending us out on the orphan train to try to find someone to take us in. Take us in. We have rode the orphan train. Take us in. We need a home, we need a name. Take us in. Oh, won't you be our kin? We are looking for someone to take us in. I have stolen from the poor box, I begged the city streets, I swamped the bars and pool rooms for a little bite to eat. In my daddy's old green jacket and these rags upon my feet, I've been looking for someone to take me in. Take us in. We have rode the orphan train. Take us in. We need a home, we need a name. Take us in. Oh, won't you be our kin? We are looking for someone to take us in. And the children's home, they gathered us, me and all the rest. They taught us to sit quietly until the food was blessed. Then they put us on the orphan train. They sent us way out west to try to find someone to take us in. Take us in. We have rode the orphan train. Take us in. We need a home. We need a name. Take us in. Oh, won't you be our kin? We are looking for someone to take us in. And the farmers and their families rode in from miles around. We lined up on the platform of the station in each town. And one by one we parted like some living lost and found. One by one we all were taken in. Take us in. We have rode the orphan train. Take us in. We need a home. We need a name. Take us in. Oh, won't you be our kin? We're looking for someone to take us in. Now there's many a good doctor or a teacher in your school. There's many a fine preacher who can teach the golden rule, who started out an orphan, sleeping in the freezing rain, whose life began out on the orphan train. Take us in. We have rode the orphan train. Take us in. We need a home. We need a name. Take us in. Oh, won't you be our kin? We are looking for someone to take us in. To pull back a little bit from the content and just talk about it as a topical song form, the repetitious chorus, which is beautiful, and the harmonies of it are very nice. And people sing along with songs like this, like Plane Crash at Los Gatos. So it's and it tells a story. It brings you right into focus with the characters of the song. You're identifying with them and hearing the story of where they started, how they were gathered and sent out west, and and then the capping part of it is these are people that you would run into. I mean, I probably know someone whose parents might have been on the orphan train. There were so many kids, hundreds of thousands of kids got moved around in this way. So it's quite an interesting thing. But as a topical song, it's got all the great things that make it work. And this is as good as many of the Woody Guthrie songs, and it's got a ballad form too, in a way, except the chorus is a more modern thing. But the idea of identifying with hardship and desperate situations. So I will add some Utah Phillips links to the links, so you can see more of him. He's a very interesting guy. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. I'm gonna move along to another song. Let's do Once a Day. Once a day, every day, all day long. This one kind of comes up into a much lighter territory of clever country songs. Bill Anderson was a songwriter who wrote a number of popular things. I do a song, "You've already put big old tears in my eyes. Must you throw dirt in my face?" And that's the key line of that song. He's got a an interesting touch as a songwriter. And this was kind of the beginning of Connie Smith's career. And back in the early 60s, I think, was when she had the hit with this. Let's see, where will I do this? Maybe I'll do it in A again. Yeah, that'll probably be good. So, when you found somebody new, I thought I never would forget you, for I thought then I never could. But time has taken all the pains away, until now I'm down to hurting once a day, all day long, and once a night from dusk till dawn. The only time I wish you weren't gone is once a day, every day, all day long. I'm so glad that I'm not like a guy I knew one time. He lost the one he loved, slowly lost his mind. He sat around and cried his life away. Oh, lucky me, I'm only crying once a day, all day long, and once a night from dusk till dawn. The only time I wish you weren't gone is once a day, every day, all day long. Once a day, every day, all day long. There's some really nice versions of this. I found one of them that the Rhonda Vincent version is interesting. She's a bluegrass singer, but she's singing on the Family Reunion TV show that was on the country music cable channel, and that's quite nice. And Loretta Lynn's version is nice. Kitty Wells is really nice. I haven't really brought in any Kitty Wells yet, but she's a really important singer, partially because of the simplicity that she sang with. She wasn't really a stylist as much as just a very straightforward vocalist, and really easy to identify the things that she sang. So I'll do some more Kitty Wells stuff probably next week, and Connie Smith, of course. One video from the 80s, referring back to 20 years ago when she had the hit. And then one more recent video. She's married to the country artist Marty Stewart, and so she's on the show. And as I've mentioned before, I think part of the beauty of country music is older people remain in sight. They don't have to shuttle them off the stage, when they're no longer young and beautiful. And so it's interesting to see how everybody does as they're older, and it's touching, and in many ways it's a beautiful expression of the songs to see them live so long in people's performances. So let's do the song again. Again, these are songs written for 45 RPMs to go into jukeboxes, so they're only going to be a couple minutes long usually. When you found somebody new, I thought I never would forget you, for I thought then I never ever could. But time has taken all the pains away. Until now I'm down to hurt once a day. Once a day. All day long. And once a night. From dusk till dawn. The only time I wish you weren't gone is once a day, every day, all day long. I'm so glad that I'm not like the guy I knew one time. He lost the one he loved and slowly lost his mind. He sat around and cried his life away. Oh, lucky me, I'm only crying once a day. Once a day, all day long. And once a night, from dusk till dawn. The only time I wish you weren't gone is once a day, every day, all day long. Once a day, every day, all day long. Another interesting performance of this, although the camera quality of the video is not so good. The Queeb sisters. I'm not sure where they're from. Someplace out west, like Montana or something. I think they're like Western swing performers, and they're three sisters that have really cool, tight harmonies, and they play the fiddle, and I think the guitarist has changed, but they play very much in a Western swing style, and they're good. They're really good. They've come and gone, and I haven't heard of them for a little while, so I'm not sure what's happening. But they kind of arrived on the scene very young, so you get to see these young girls on the stage, working real hard. Super professional from the very beginning. So. Yeah. I like to say of these songs, the sad songs, I probably said it last week, I say it all the time. The sad songs are appealing because they're talking about emotions that are difficult to express, and when they're put to a nice melody and said really well, you can relate to them. Audiences relate to them, and I'm very drawn to them, even ones that are quite sad. I just have to say this Orphan Train really kind of hit me this week. Yeah, I was familiar with it, and I thought of it immediately when the woman said, "Bring in another orphan song." This one when I started looking at the details of what had happened, it really kind of threw me. More than broken-hearted love songs do. I'm a little more familiar with that territory, and it's not so much that I would have to master in singing about that. So, anyways, let's go back to that territory. And with that in mind, let's do the Hazel Dickens song, "You'll Get No More of Me." Hazel was literally a pioneering woman of bluegrass. She came up in the 40s and 50s in the coal fields of West Virginia, and she was part of a movement of Appalachian people who would go to the cities to find work, and so she moved to Baltimore and worked there, and got involved with the bluegrass community. Baltimore was a kind of a hotbed of bluegrass material, somewhat similar to Cincinnati. Just certain towns kind of drew drew people, and they kind of developed their own style of bluegrass. And as you can imagine, it's like first generation bluegrass. These would be guys forming bands. Bill Monroe famously, started the um, Bill Monroe and his bluegrass boys in Kentucky, and so the scene would be playing in bars. This was bar music. It was kind of rowdy drinking bar music for the most part before it became festival oriented a little later. So Hazel was hanging in there and going to play in the bars and sing in the bars, and became a bass player and played along in different groups. So she was very much a part of that early scene, and began writing early on. And part of what she wrote about was not just to become a performer as a good singer. She wrote about what she was going through. So her topics are working people, working women, especially how women are treated in the workplace and in relationship. And she wrote some great songs. I actually did a whole course on the songs of Hazel Dickens, and her partner through a lot of her life, Alice Gerard. Hazel and Alice were had a number of really good recordings of their duet singing. So as a duet act, they were important as well. And then Alice, after Hazel died, in I think it was I want to say 2010 or so, maybe it was a little later. Alice Gerard has continued, and she's still writing and performing. But this song, "You'll Get No More of Me," is a classic Hazel Dickens song. The let's see. Yeah, I'll do this in the key of D. Sing a little bit louder. Part of what there would be to imagine in this is her singing this in a crowd of men, and she's really quite a wonderful character altogether. Yeah, there's a lot to say. Let me sing it once, and then I'll do a little more. As you go from me, you want all that's left, the last thread of pride in my heart, till you've wrung the last teardrop from my eye. You won't be satisfied. So take your cold, unloving heart, your eyes too blinded to see. Oh, you never found the door to this heart of mine. You'll get no more of me. You wrecked my heart like a cruel winter storm, bending its branches so low. Oh, your wayward heart and your tortured soul leave no memory worthy to hold. So take your cold, unloving heart, your eyes too blinded to see. Oh, you never found the door to this heart of mine. You'll get no more of me. So I'll take back my heart from the willow bough. I'll hang my tears out to dry. I'll hang my head in sorrow no more, and no more tears will I cry. So take your cold, unloving heart, your eyes too blinded to see. Oh, you never found the door to this heart of mine. you'll get no more of me. No, you never found the door to this heart of mine. You'll get no more of me. Hazel, here in San Francisco, the Hardly Strictly Bluegrass Festival happened last weekend, and one of the part of the origin of that festival that was funded by the financier Warren Hillman was that he loved the music of Hazel Dickens and befriended her, wanted to have her here to perform, and she famously wanted nothing to do with him. He was like the opposite end of the stick of her life, and a rich guy who wanted to dip into Appalachian culture, as a culture tourist, and he really had to convince her that he really loved the music and wanted to help help her and help the music. And the start of the Hardly Strictly Festival, which is now funded, I think, for another 10 years or so at least, to happen, and they fly people in from all over the country to perform. Hazel was at the center of that while she was alive and performing. And in 2007, my wife at the time and I met Warren Hellman at a party, and he heard us sing, and he said, "I've got this thing that I do in the city. I'd like you to be a part of it if you would." And I said, "Yeah, sure." I mean, it was like the 7th year of Hardly Strictly, and I had been to 2 or 3 of them already, and it looked like it was going to be great. And so he got us signed up, and we were one of however many acts there were, 20 or 30 different acts that got hired to perform. And there's, you may know, there's a number of different stages that happen in Golden Gate Park. And we were on one of the small stages, and we played in the morning. We weren't stars by any means, but we were treated wonderfully by Hellman. And part of the great experience of doing that, we had a duet. We called ourselves the Cash Magnets, because of course there's no money in this music, and but we got to perform on the small stage, and we were treated really well. We got to be backstage with all these people that are famous and well known and heroes. And one of the great things that happened for me was I got to talk to Hazel Dickens, and she was just standing next to a fence and kind of waiting around, and I just went over and started talking to her about music and how much I loved her music and her singing, and it was just a wonderful experience, because one of the things I said was that I loved her devotion to singing heartbreaking songs, songs that you just throw yourself into. And her way of singing was she just gripped the song, and sang the hell out of it. And as she got older, her pitch began to get wavery. It was one of those things that happens to older performers. Well, she kept doing it. She kept getting up on stage and singing as good as she could, and it was moving. It was very moving. And the central part of my little discussion with her was talking about sad songs, and I said, if a song chokes me up when I sing it, then that's one I got to do. And she grabbed me by the arm and said, "That's right. That's how it works." And so it was a really nice moment to have with Hazel. And she performed in her later years, especially with a guy named Dudley Cannell, who was a singer in the Johnson Mountain Boys. And so he would do the duet parts with her and kind of keep the pitch under control and travel with her and stuff. But yeah, she was great. I'll probably bring in at least one more song of hers. But let's do this song again. go from me. You want all that's left, the last thread of pride in my heart, till you've wrung the last teardrop from my eyes. You won't be satisfied. So take your cold, unloving heart, your eyes too blinded to see. You never found the door to this heart of mine. Get no more of me. You wrecked my heart like a cruel winter storm, bending my branches so low. Oh, your wayward heart and your tortured soul leave no memory worthy to hold. So take your cold, unloving heart, your eyes too blinded to see. Oh, you never found the door to this heart of mine. You'll get no more of me. So I'll take back my heart from the willow bough. I'll hang my head, tears out to dry. I'll hang my head in sorrow no more, and no more tears will I cry. Take your cold, unloving heart, your eyes too blinded to see. Boy, you never found the door to this heart of mine. You'll get no more of me. No, you never found the door to this heart of mine. You'll get no more of me. You might have seen, there was a movie called Harlan County, USA. I forget the filmmaker's name. That was about the coal mines, and Hazel Dickens was featured in a scene where she's singing at a graveside, yeah, she's a really distinctive singer. I'll bring more of her songs. Let's do early. Greg Brown is a folk singer-songwriter who kind of came out in the '80s, and he's still around. He wrote a number of really good songs. And this is a song that one morning my wife Lucy woke up and said, "I've got this song in my head that I haven't heard for a long time. Let me sing it for you." And she sang the song to me, and I thought, we got to learn this. And it's a very, very sweet song. I'll just sing through it first, and then we can talk about it. It's a waltz. Early one morning, I walked out alone. I looked down the street, no one was around. The sun was just coming up over my home on Hickory Street in a little farm town. And ooh-wee, ain't the morning light pretty when the dew is still heavy, so bright and early. My home on the range, it's a one-horse town, and it's all right with me. Plow broke the prairie gave plenty. The little towns blossomed, and soon there were many scattered like fireflies across the dark night. And one was called early, and they sure named it right. And ooh, ain't the morning light pretty when the dew is still heavy, so bright and early. My home on the range is a one-horse town, and it's all right with me. Many dry summers parched all the fields. They burnt the fine colors and cut down the yield. The rain has returned to wash away our fears. The fullest green summer that we've seen in years. And ooh, ain't the morning light pretty when the dew is still heavy, so bright and early. My home on the range is a one-horse town, and it's all right with me. Ooh, ain't the morning light pretty when the dew is still heavy, so bright and early. My home on the range is a one-horse town, and it's all right with me. This is early Iowa is the name of the town, and I put in a link, an actual map, to Google Maps of. You can see early. It's probably like 10 intersections wide, and yeah, there's one of the links is this show called Walk Across America, where they take a drone view of early. What I guess the show is they go to a number of different towns and do drone views and talk about the town, and early is one of them that they did. So it's really interesting. I mean, it's just a small Midwestern town. If you I'm from Ohio, and my family's from Indiana and West Virginia. So small towns are kind of normal to me, but this is a really small town, and so it's kind of cool to see. And they have his song going in the background. There's two versions of Greg Brown. One when it's new. It's probably when he wrote it, the song. He's singing kind of high. It's very touching. I really love his voice at this time. There's a later version. His voice dropped quite a bit, and he's a character. I can't quite get a grip on him, whether he's putting on this crotchety, gruff character, or whether it's kind of part of his performance thing, or whether he's a crotchety, gruff character, which he may be. But anyways, he's singing it very differently, but it's touching just the same. And there's a bunch of nice versions of this. One of them, the Glenstock group in the links, it's a group of people that apparently sang together a lot, and then COVID happened, so they did these Zoom calls where they're all singing together. Somehow they blended it together. Zoom is tricky with singing together. But anyways, it's all these people that were in this group and singing this song early, and it's that kind of song. I think it works really well for that kind of, and it's beautiful to hear all these different people harmonizing with it and singing the verses. As you can imagine, Garrison Keillor from Prairie Home Companion, right up his alley. Greg Brown was a early performer on that show, so. There's a couple of versions of Keillor doing it with different people, Sarah Yarosh and Prudence Johnson. So anyways, it's quite a beautiful song. Somehow or another, I had just never heard it until a couple of years ago when Lucy woke up with it in her head. So we learned it, and love to do it. As you can hear, there's some great harmonies on it. So let's see. Yeah. One of the things that I like to do with different versions is find people that are not doing anything special. They're just folks that want to sing the song in front of a camera, and a lot of the things that I put in, they're not great versions, but I love to see how people perform them who are not performers really. Um, I'm being an old guy who lived alone for a long time. I'm always kind of touched by the ones of uh, guys sitting in their room beside their crumpled bed with their old guitar and a stupid hat on, singing a song that they love. Those always get me. So there may be some of those kind of sprinkled through these things. I've been that guy at different times, but I never started doing videos, anyways. So let's do this again. Key of G. Early one morning, I walked out alone. I looked down the street, no one was around. The sun was just coming up over my home on Hickory Street in a little farm town. And ooh-wee, ain't the morning light pretty when the dew is still heavy, so bright and early. My home on the range is a one-horse town, and it's all right with me. Plow broke the prairie gave plenty. Little towns blossomed, soon there were many, scattered like fireflies across the dark night. And one was called early, and they sure named it right. And ooh-wee, ain't the morning light pretty when the dew is still heavy, so bright and early. My home on the range is a one-horse town, and it's all right with me. Many dry summers parched all the fields. They burnt the fine colors, cut down the yield. But the rain has returned to wash away our tears. It's the fullest green summer that we've seen in years. And ooh-wee, ain't the morning light pretty when the dew is still heavy, so bright and early. My home on the range is a one-horse town, and it's all right with me. Ooh-wee, ain't the morning light pretty when the dew is still heavy, so bright and early. My home on the range is a one-horse town, and it's all right with me. Cool. Nikki, are you playing a mandolin?
Yeah, but I'm a very preliminary mandolin player. Actually, I'm practicing getting my hands into these weird stretch shapes.
Okay. Cool. That's great.
Yeah, I'm a very beginner. I can't still having trouble figuring out how to make the chords.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Are there any areas of song that you would like me to cover? I was kind of touched by the woman in class last week who said, any more orphan songs you can find, I'd be interested. Are there any areas or artists that you'd like me to bring in songs from that you're aware of? I'd be happy to.
I'm actually kind of interested in Woody Guthrie's Tennessee Valley Authority song, the TVA, those early
Uh-huh.
songs.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Do
I mean,
that.
actually, I like everything. I like all the songs that you've been bringing us,
Oh, good. Good.
but I like all the history. I actually am interested in the sort of in that Woody Guthrie stuff, just because it seems, there was such hope at that point that technology was going to offer
Yeah.
all these
Yeah.
great solutions.
Yeah.
Um, Actually, I was at this at Joe Craven's jamboree up
Hmm.
in Dixon, and a couple of us were talking about all there's just so much interest in bluegrass and those and sort of songs, but people don't seem to understand. The younger people don't understand the history. I mean, it's funny. And so here we are, all these people over 60 complaining about those young people who are great musicians but don't know the history of music. It's kind of interesting,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
especially because so much of it seems so relevant. Actually, what's I guess this is a Pete Seeger song, but the banks were made of marble with a guarded, what is that song? Um
Oh, it's a little familiar. I can't think of it offhand. Yeah.
yeah, but the bank, because actually it's funny because we I had a record player as a kid, and that's the music my parents gave me. But it was,
Ah,
what was it? The banks are made of marble with a guard at every door. God, boy, that's funny. But anyway, but all this
yeah.
stuff about economics, I just it's so
Yeah.
relevant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's come and gone like I would say among musicians who learn and play the songs. It's come and gone in popularity, and I guess I don't want to say relevance because the topics are always relevant, but especially since nothing much has changed. But popular taste for it has certainly changed. And um, one of the things I was going to mention with um, uh, um, the Dry Branch Fire Squad um, doing Orphan Train. Um, the the main singer for Dry Branch Fire Squad, um, his name is slipping my mind. Anyways, he's quite a character himself. I keep saying character. These are like performance personalities. He's very funny, very dry. He affects this kind of aw shucks country guy. He's a brilliant man, actually. He's brilliant and extremely funny. And the Dry Branch Fire Squad shows are a combination of bluegrass songs and various kinds of songs that they do. Among them, worker songs, left-oriented um, topics, and Ron Thomason is his name. Um, anyways, his one version of him doing Orphan Train that I found. I don't think it's the one that I put in, but he's talking about being hired to work at a folk festival. Dry Branch being a group that worked at a folk festival, and they had to do a workshop. Performers are asked to do workshops at the festivals, and so he did a workshop, and he found that he was doing a workshop with Utah Phillips on politics and folk music. And the way that Thomason tells the story is he's sort of backing into this scene of doing, you know, a workshop on politics, folk music, when he himself was a farmer and a rancher, um, and so, anyways, the story that he tells is hearing Utah Phillips get up and he says he was angry. He was angry at the audience, and he's trying to turn them into communists. And it's an interesting story because Phillips was a kind of a labor organizer type of lefty folk performer, and I think he was. I think his character. He was an angry type of character. He seemed pissed off a lot of the times. Even when he's being funny and gentle, there's this pressure of anger behind what he did. And I can very easily imagine how he'd kind of, you know, wag his finger at people to get it together and organize, kind of thing, which
Mhm.
is a common thing in leftist gatherings. You know, I've been to some
Well,
myself.
union also, actually, I remember as a kid going to see my grandfather at work, and I didn't know him well, and I hadn't met him until I was probably 10 years old.
Hmm,
And he was an organizer for the ILGWU in
hmm.
New Jersey, actually. So
Wow.
he had a couple of locals of the ILGWU, and I went to see him at work. And work was this sweatshop with I guess sort of immigrant women, probably
Yeah.
mostly Jewish women. But so there are there's these sewing machines all over the place, and he climbed up on this table, and he was a little short, stout Jewish man, but he was up on this table screaming and yelling, and I think that was just how they did it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
they were just that was just is and I don't even know what they were screaming and yelling about. But I mean, he was on their side, but he was still screaming and yelling.
Yeah, yeah, and it's to get people fired up. I mean, you know, like any rally or you know, and yeah, and I suspect that what Thomason was describing was he himself was a working farmer who understood the issues perfectly well, uh, and as far as I'm aware, has a kind of progressive left point of view about things. And here was Utah Phillips kind of railing in this fire and brimstone kind of a way uh, about politics and you know the way Thomason says wanting to turn them into communists. Um, and it just was an interesting thing. The point of the story is how the um, polemic sort of approach to what the songs are for and how the songs get used can be off-putting. I felt it myself at times when I felt scolded or told how to think about things that I already agreed with the cause. You know, if it's heavy-handed or um, I don't know, you know, there's these differences of what makes a song work or not, whether it's an emotional song about relationship or you know something about large social issues or about the Grand Coulee Dam, you know, bringing us power and hope. Um, it's just it's part of the whole thing and part of what you know there is to think about with all these songs. Um,
So I sent you. I actually did just quickly Google the banks are made of marble, and it said it, and I sent it to you actually. But
okay, good, thank you. Yeah.
it says it's a song by Les Rice in 1950. So it was a Pete Seeger song.
Hmm.
But actually, that's I mean I'm interested in those labor songs. I like those labor songs also.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, in my experience, mostly back in the '70s when I was out of college and was trying to get focused on what my social orientation was, and it was becoming radicalized through the Chilean Revolution. I worked at La Peña Cultural Center, uh,
Oh, yeah.
um, painted a mural there, and worked in the music area of their productions. Um, um, Yeah, the labor songs. I performed coal mining songs and labor songs with a friend of mine. We had a duet, and um, it's an interesting topic. We may be speaking about it too much here tonight, but it is part of what the whole thing is about. What I found as an earnest young guy who wanted to sing about these things and make it happen. Holly Near was someone whose performances were very popular in those days, and she was talking from the stage about struggles and organizing and
Mm.
bringing things into light that people might not know about. What I found was we were preaching to the choir much of the time. Much of the time, the only people that would ever come hear us sing were people that we were already in agreement with us about what we were singing about. And it really kind of made me sad. It's like how do you make theater or art or performance that reaches out to people is inclusive and is interesting and educational and moving and meaningful. It's hard. It's tremendously hard. Um, and anytime someone like Hazel Dickens writing songs about coal mining, her brother died of black lung disease. When she sings about coal mining, she knows what she's talking about, and it's heartbreaking and it's meaningful. It's good art as well. And I don't know, it's just an interesting territory, which things worked back in the 30s as organizing tools, and as lyrical and musical art, and theater and painting. The murals of Diego Rivera are tremendously moving still. There was one here in San Francisco, a big mural that's at MoMA, still moving, very much that type of art. And some of them work and some of them don't. It's interesting. Um,
Well, I don't want to take everybody's time with this, but I think
yeah,
if you want to avoid preaching to the choir,
yeah.
part of that has to do with being in this part of California. So where everybody sort of homogeneously has those same views. So when you were probably painting that mural at La Pena, it was probably when I was in St. Louis.
Hmm.
There were like 300 progressive people who had to cover every issue in St. Louis.
Yes. Yeah. Well,
There
that's
you have
yeah,
a much better chance of being around people who don't agree with you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes. Well, yeah. Anyways, it is a big topic, but it's yeah, it's of interest to me. I think I mentioned with the Kate Wolf song that I did a couple weeks ago. I tried when I was at La Peña. I tried to organize a political folk song, people to come and talk at a little seminar about political folk songs. And she said, "I don't do political songs. I do."
Who said that?
Kate Wolf.
She said she didn't do political stuff.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. I got her phone number and called her up and said, "Hey, I'm a friend of Robbie Osmond's, and I'm doing this show at La Peña, or this seminar at La Peña. Would you come and talk about your music?" And she said, "Yeah. What do you want?" And I said, "Well, it's on political folk songs, and um, and then she said, I don't sing political music. I sing about relationships. I sing about the environment." Which actually is political. I mean, I thought that her focus as a Northern California singer and embracing nature in the way that she did and writing about relationships, that's pretty political to me. But she declined. She didn't want to talk about it that way. She didn't like to characterize herself in that way. Um, I don't want to try to speak too much for her, but she said no, basically. And, you know, but there were other people who came and they wanted to talk about labor songs and working with unions and, singing at rallies and performing from stages. And so it's an interesting area. Um, but anyways, let's do this song again. Let's do When My Blue Moon Turns to Gold again.
Can I add one comment?
Yes, please do.
All the songs that you choose are fine selection. On a lighter side, you were asking if there were any like interests we had to look at songs. There was that Streamline Cannonball by Jim Ringer.
Mhm.
So and then also the Valley song, it mentions.
Oh, I'd love to bring that in. Yeah.
So I always like the movement of a train keeping it covers a lot of ground within a couple of minutes in the song. So the use of a train, I don't know, I'm always drawn to that for some reason. But anyway,
Okay.
just
I will bring in the Valley song for sure. That's thank you for mentioning that one. Yeah. I was thinking about that tonight, in fact. Yeah. Good. Good. Yeah, well let's When My Blue Moon Turns to Gold Again. This is from the early 40s, I think. Memories that linger in my heart, memories that make but someday we'll live them all again, and my blue moon again will turn to gold. When my blue moon turns to gold again, and the rainbow turns the clouds away. When my blue moon turns to gold again, we'll be back within my arms to stay. Your lips that used to thrill me so, your kisses were meant for only me. In my dreams we'll live them all again, but my golden moon is just a memory. When my blue moon turns to gold again, and the rainbow turns the clouds away. When my blue moon turns to gold again, you'll be back within my arms to stay. The castles we built of dreams together were the sweetest stories ever told. Maybe we could live them all again, and my blue moon again will turn to gold. When my blue moon turns to gold again, and the rainbow turns the clouds away. When my blue moon turns to gold again, you'll be back within my arms to stay. You'll be back within my arms to stay. This is a song that kind of covered from the 40s to now, really. But it got done in a number of different styles that I show in these links. My favorite being Merle Haggard's versions. He's my favorite singer, bar none. And his recorded version of this is really good. But it's interesting to hear him do it live as well. So there's a couple of those. Wiley and Sullivan were the people that wrote the song, and to hear how they did it early on, and then to see how it became such a popular hit. Elvis Presley doing it on the Ed Sullivan Show, and kind of, I think, poking at the style and kind of being Elvis, being a bad boy with it. Jerry Lee Lewis, same deal, but Jerry Lee sings the heck out of it. So there's Bill Monroe and Danny Paisley I wanted to mention because we mentioned bluegrass. Bill Monroe's style of singing this song, I noticed in the comments below that video, people are saying it's such an emotional song. Why does he show no emotion, And that's, I think I commented on that before, the bluegrass style. It's not, they're not singing their hearts out. It's kind of repressed, restrained style. You can see it in Monroe's singing. Danny Paisley is a bluegrass singer, very, very popular and a stylist. His singing is very emotional, very out there. He's one of the people you would say he spills his guts on the stage and then he walks around in it. He makes a big show out of being very emotional. So that's kind of a different approach to it. But it's just a very sweet song. I think my favorite version of this that I found was Hank Snow and Anita Carter. Hank Snow was, of course, a 50s country singer from Canada. And Anita Carter was the youngest of the Carter sisters. And their version of it is really sweet. So it's a song that I think has its roots going all the way back to like Victorian parlor songs in terms of the subject matter and the imagery, and it just turned into a very popular song. I was at a jam just last year, and somebody pulled it out, and everybody knew it. It's pretty interesting. So let's do that again, and we'll call it a night. Memories that linger in my heart, memories that make my heart grow cold, but someday we'll live them all again, and my blue moon again will turn to gold. When my blue moon turns to gold again, and the rainbow turns the clouds away. When my blue moon turns to gold again, you'll be back within my arms to stay. Your lips that used to thrill me so, your kisses were meant for only me. In my dreams we'll live them all again, but my golden moon is just a memory. When my blue moon turns to gold again, and the rainbow turns the clouds away. When my blue moon turns to gold again, you'll be back within my arms to stay. The castles we built of dreams together were the sweetest stories ever told. Maybe we could live them all again, and my blue moon again will turn to gold. When my blue moon turns to gold again, and the rainbow turns the clouds away. When my blue moon turns to gold again, you'll be back within my arms to stay. You'll be back within my arms to stay. Okay, friends, thank you very much.